For decades, we've been able to read the genetic blueprints of animals that have been extinct for millennia. But here's the thing, those blueprints are silent. So what if we could actually listen? What if we could hear the very last messages their bodies ever sent? Well, we're about to dive into a scientific breakthrough that's making that a reality.
Okay, so think about it like this. We can sequence the DNA from a woolly mammoth, which is, absolutely incredible. But that DNA is just a blueprint. It's kind of like having the complete architectural plans for a massive skyscraper. It shows you every possible room, every single wire, every pipe. But what it doesn't tell you is which lights were on, which faucets were running, or what was actually happening inside that building right before the power went out for good.
And this is the crucial point. If DNA is the entire cookbook with every recipe the body could ever make, RNA is the specific recipe a cell was using at one single moment. It's the active messenger, right? It's carrying instructions from the DNA to the rest of the cell. The big problem? RNA is ridiculously fragile. For the longest time, scientists just assumed it was a ghost molecule, a voice that faded to nothing just hours after death, lost to time forever.
And that, right there, is the fundamental challenge. If we really want to understand an extinct animal, that static blueprint, the DNA, it just isn't enough. We need to know which parts of that grand plan were actually being used.
Because it was so fragile, it meant a huge part of an animal's story was just gone. Its real-time cellular activity, how it's responding to its environment, the very biology of its final moments, all of that was thought to be permanently erased. It was like a locked room, and we had no key.
So, to really get why this is such a huge deal, we need to take a closer look at this so-called fragile messenger itself, RNA.
To put it simply, RNA tells us which genes were turned on. It's the difference between knowing a mammoth had the genes for a thick woolly coat and knowing if those genes were actively working to grow that coat in a specific piece of tissue. It gives us this dynamic, real-time snapshot of life as it was being lived.
But then, a few teams of scientists decided, you know what, let's try the impossible. Let's go listen for that ghost. They started looking at ancient specimens where, against all odds, maybe, just maybe, some of these fragile molecules might have survived.
And they did not start small, no way. They went for two of the most iconic extinct animals you can possibly imagine. The Tasmanian tiger, also known as the thylacine, and the Ice Age woolly mammoth.
Just look at this timeline. It really shows you the incredible scales we're talking about here. On one hand, you've got a Tasmanian tiger specimen from 1891, which was simply dried and stored at room temperature in a museum. And on the other, a mammoth named Yucca that died around 40,000 years ago and was basically flash frozen in Siberian permafrost. I mean, two totally different environments, separated by tens of thousands of years.
So they went looking for the ghost, and what's absolutely wild is they heard something back. The big question was, what were these ancient messages actually saying?
For the Tasmanian tiger, the results were just stunning. This RNA wasn't just random noise, it was incredibly specific. In the muscle tissue, they found active recipes for proteins like titin and actin, the literal building blocks of muscle. And in the skin sample, bam, the recipe for keratin, the protein that makes hair. This was the smoking gun. It proved the RNA they recovered was a perfect reflection of what those tissues were doing, which confirmed they were reading real functional messages from over a century ago.
Yeah, as one of the lead researchers, Mark Friedlander, put it, they were getting a glimpse into the existence of genes that were actively working inside an animal that's gone forever. They weren't just reading the cookbook anymore, they were seeing which recipe was actually out on the counter.
And the story from Yucca the mammoth? It was even more dramatic. Its RNA, preserved for 40,000 years, showed these clear signs of intense metabolic and cellular stress. It painted this vivid picture of its frantic final moments, which really backs up the theory that it was being attacked by predators, maybe even cave lions. But here's the kicker. For years, everyone thought Yucca was a female. Well, the RNA analysis found active Y chromosome genes, proving without a doubt that Yucca was male. It solved a 40,000-year-old case of mistaken identity.
But look, this breakthrough isn't just about solving some old mysteries. The implications for the future of science are absolutely massive.
This changes things. For those really ambitious de-extinction projects, just having the DNA sequence, that's not enough, not even close. You need to know which genes to activate and when to create a viable animal. Well, RNA gives us that instruction manual.
It also means we can now hunt for the genomes of ancient RNA viruses, things like influenza or coronaviruses, hiding in museum specimens. We can potentially trace their evolution over time. All of a sudden, every natural history museum in the world has become this incredible library of not just blueprints, but of lost biological stories.
So, being able to sequence ancient RNA, it's like we just found a Rosetta Stone for a language we thought was lost forever. It fundamentally reshapes our understanding of the past and gives us this incredibly dynamic look at the biology of extinct life. The only question now is, what other secrets are out there, frozen in time, just waiting for us to finally listen?